openers.
So the next story getting brought in is Signalgate 2.0. Now, this also apparently occurred in March too. But the gist of the story is that once again, Pete Hegseth was caught or suspected or allegedly um, was using Signal Chat and leaked more military plans, strikes, in particular, the airstrike schedule for an attack in Yemen to a group of people that was meant for administrative purposes. Supposedly, this chat that he sent these messages into was a chat that was built during his confirmation process and has his wife, his brother, and a few other people, but was meant for administrative purposes as an organization around what happens next now that I got confirmed, where is my office, etc., etc. And the story is once again Pete Hegseth making a big blunder, people calling for his resignation, so the thumbnail is. Now, the story is actually not that. The story is that what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, stemming from the first Signal Gate that involved Mike Waltz and a few other individuals, such as J.D. Vance and other individuals from the cabinet, is that there are reports, and increasing reports and concerns, that there is actually a civil war happening inside the Trump administration as it pertains to what Pete Hegseth is in charge of. And that would be the Secretary of Defense. This relates, and what we're seeing is that people are arguing tremendously over what to do with Iran. And that seems to be what the war is being fought over. Now, whether you want to say whoever it is, doesn't matter, neocons, whatever. The reports from what we're seeing, and we have many different takes too from many different pundits that I threw here in the outline, is that it seems to be, and we're seeing, and I forget the name, it's like Dan Caldwell and a couple other individuals have all been fired. So they're firing a lot of Pete Hegseth's guys. You had a fake story that was dropped today by NPR saying that the search has begun for a new Secretary of Defense. There is a clear push to try to get Hegseth out of this position, and I think it is largely hinging upon the fact that he has been radically de-escalating the tensions and the willingness to go to war with Iran, and instead trying to find more peaceful negotiation attempts to deal with this issue instead of going to war. And whoever is on Mike Waltz's side of the team is clearly wanting to push for the full-scale war, which many people believe would pull us into World War III as it relates to the relationships that Iran has with other BRICS nations like Russia and China. Now, there's also other individuals from Mike Waltz's team that has been getting fired as well. But there's now a running theory that what Mike Waltz did purposefully by adding Jeffrey Goldberg was to begin this process, which would turn the ire towards Pete Hegseth in an attempt to begin to publicize these blunders in a way that would make people feel like Pete Hegseth can't be trusted as the head of the military. Now, for as it relates to all the takes, I wanted to highlight some of the other individuals' takes on this too, to get a more broad perspective here. But here's where we'll start with this. There's one from Jack Posobiec, and I'll go ahead and make sure I just share my screen here. I'll put it on screen for you guys. We're just going to go through this person by person and their individual takes on how they have been perceiving this. Now, if I can get this to work with me, I'll put this on screen. Hopefully mine's I wish mine would scale better like Worlds does, but it doesn't. But
yeah, I don't know why it does that, but
I'm going to zoom in actually too. Is that easier to see for everybody? Let's go one more.
There you go.
Yep. So this is Jack Posobiec. Now, Jack Posobiec is saying Deep State is trying hard to bounce Hegseth after the Iran story dropped last week where he helped stop World War III. So obvious what they're doing. Now, Dominic Michael Trippi, another independent reporter, said that Pete Hegseth was against strikes on Iranian nuclear sites. The neocons and establishment brass were furious. First, they came for his subordinates, Dan Caldwell, etc. Now they're coming for him. Total power grab by the pro-war neocon faction. Mike Cernovich also came in. Someone I don't like all that much, but he came in and said that Mike Waltz was confirmed as the person who added a neocon never-Trumper who lied about Trump into the group chat. Somehow, Pete Hegseth became the target, revealing. This is about installing people who want World War III into the Trump administration to betray his base. Now, AF Post has a more broad one here, saying that the civil war is brewing in the Trump administration over how to handle Iran. Witkoff, Vance, and Hegseth favor a diplomatic approach, while Waltz, Rubio, and others want to aid Israel in a joint strike against Iran's nuclear facilities. Now, Matt Walsh even coming in, and he says, I loved the Pete Hegseth pick initially, but now, after seeing this unrelenting campaign to smear and destroy him, I love the pick even more. We all need to rally around him. This coordinated hit job cannot be allowed to succeed. Now, for a bit more harsher takes on this, I'll bring in 9mm SMG, who says Hegseth is being attacked because he wasn't on board to bomb Iran. It's that simple, and I can't be convinced otherwise. And then the last one I'll add in here before going to a secondary take is from Harrison Smith, host of InfoWars. He says that Israel is attempting a hostile takeover of the American military because they are desperate to attack Iran in this window of opportunity they created by eliminating their proxies. This is the biggest story on earth. If they succeed, it's World War III. Now, we have a lot of individuals who seemingly are just not in the news as much, right? They're not, and sometimes can't even blame them, right? News cycles is a lot of just trash, and it's a lot of like negative stuff. And so I find it increasingly hard to blame people for not paying attention. Ultimately, though, obviously, I think if you're not paying attention, it doesn't matter because politics cares about you. I think it's clear that the majority of the conservative base does see and recognize that there is some kind of establishment push to take Pete Hegseth out of his position. And it's clear that the majority of them do view this as a warmongering attempt to do so, a bloodthirsty attempt in collusion with some of the individuals who are already in the Trump administration alongside the media to help build and fabricate as many possible smears as they can on Hegseth to prevent him from being in a position of power so that someone else can be installed to ultimately be in the ear to say, yes, let's bomb Iran. Now, it's notable too, because if you think of how, when we were approaching with the confirmations, Hegseth was the one that was fought against the hardest. I mean, they even dropped the fake sexual assault story. They were going balls to the wall to attack Hegseth. And then when it came to RFK and Tulsi, they said some things during the confirmation hearings, but they weren't dropping smear pieces on them like crazy like they did Hegseth. And so I think it was clear that they were much more concerned about Hegseth getting in, which I think showed their hand on what their priorities were in regards to what they wanted to accomplish the most among who they could, influence on being inside the administration. I think ultimately we're going to probably get, hopefully, a good conservative defensive. Hegseth will stay in. I think ultimately attempts are going to fail. But I do think at large, though, most people who aren't privy to the way that the inner workings happen, they're just basically going to see that Hegseth now for the second time is like, la-di-la-di-la, like, yeah, we're bombing Iran today, guys, da-da-da-da-da. Like, and I sent it to 10 people who I shouldn't have. And I think on a base level sense, people see that and they just might be concerned overall. As much as we know that fake news is a thing, they might just overall get on the train and say, yeah, Pete Hegseth should probably go. Didn't he leak all this information? Without realizing to the extent of which is being fabricated, much like the Russia hoax collusion. And now I think what we're going to get for the next couple of weeks, as we have gotten for the last month or so, is instead of Russia, 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 here is Hegseth, Hegseth, Hegseth. And it's all specifically because I think, and I believe personally, that their goal is to escalate our the tensions with Iran out of peaceful negotiations into full-scale war. Because obviously, whether you contribute it to neocons, military-industrial complex, that's just the current breakdown that I see happening with this story in particular. And I think its weight is heavy because if you look at Harrison Smith, I agree with that. War with Iran will lead to World War III. And I am just like Dave Smith. That is like the one thing that Trump cannot do. I think it will annihilate a good portion of his legacy. We have to avoid as much as possible of going into a full scale war at what he cannot run for a third term that may force us into a conflict in which Trump steps down and then we are forced into a position we are deciding on a president during a wartime event. And I think that would be a terrible, terrible way for America to enter or be midway through a conflict with somebody.
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially with Iran being backed by, Russia and China via the BRICS alliances. There's a lot of pressure on China right now through Trump's tariffs, and I don't know how far they would want to go, into supporting, excuse me, Iran with this, but either, it could either push them over the line one way or the other. Technically, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I don't know. It's just an interesting, and it's definitely a brewing up of a potential World War III. And I agree with you that if the United States were to go to war with Iran, it would be bad.
Right.
just simple. It'd be bad. No, it would actually you know especially considering what's going on in the Middle East already, and then everything's going on between Ukraine and Russia. When the entire world, when the majority of the world's highest powers are all engaged in war, I mean, it's basically a world war, rather, regardless of who they're at war with, or if they all relate or not.
Right. And actually to go into more detail, I think this quote tweet from our nationalist is decently solid as well. But he writes again that last week Hegseth helped convince Trump not to attack Iran's nuclear facilities, and that days later he's fighting for his job after a fresh scandal emerges. Are the two things connected? Maybe. So he goes into analysis as he wrote an article, it looks like there for InfoWars. Now I do think you still have to, you know, obviously I think there is obviously, a soft power, hard power. But what caught my attention too was the fact that so Joe Casper, who is the chief of staff for Hegseth, was actually dismissed, I believe, either this morning or yesterday at some point, which is now another person knocked down the line from Hegseth. And that actually, even before this story took off, there was another story that involved, I believe his name was Dan Caldwell, because Dan Caldwell became the fall guy for supposedly another leak that occurred. But that story didn't stick as nearly as much as this one was when you're targeting Hegseth directly. But ultimately, it still led to the firing or the releasing of multiple people that Hegseth had brought in to surround him amongst his wing of the administration. And I think it's clear a lot of the people who are on the progressive left are also very extremely, anti-Israel because they're all like Marxist, cultural Marxists for the most part. But Max Blumenthal had even put out, and I'll throw him in here too, which I think Max Blumenthal is a smarter individual, but I don't agree with a lot of his positions he takes. But he says that the New York Times actually reported that Hegseth was among Trump officials opposing the U.S. launching a massive war on Iran on behalf of Israel, and that 3 Pentagon officials have already been fired for unknown leaks. And then he adds here at the end, he says Israel lobbyists are now calling for more firings over the leaks that led to this story. It's a lot to take in just because, again, I'm sitting here at the very end going, how does this decrease the price of eggs in America?
Mm-hmm.
How does this make America a more Christian nation? How does this, like, again, like it's like, what the actual F are we doing? And even more so, I don't know if it was Statista or if it was the Pew Research Center or where I'd seen it from. But the majority of men when asked, I think I came up the age range was about Iran. The majority of them basically responded like, "I'm not going to die in a foreign war for Israel," which I think is a very, very that's different than like saying, "I don't want to go to war." It's like now they're saying like, "I don't want to go to war for a country that's not my country," and I think this speaks to part of the reason why we even saw like Tim Pool take the meeting with Netanyahu, as much as you may disagree with all the reasons why. I think it's clear that the pro-Israel side is watching their public support dissipate. And I think on those grounds, similar to what we see with the polling, with a lot of individuals seeing how this is playing out and why, and their perspective of what the Iranian conflict is it's shaping up to be something. Now, what that something is, I don't know. I'm terrified of false flags. I'm terrified of something just happening out of the blue that would just like that lends our leaders to say our hands were forced, guys. We just had to.
Mm-hmm.
I overall don't appreciate it, and I'm just very dismayed at the fact that we get our no new wars president in office, and it looks like we're fighting tooth and nail for the administration to not push for him to go to war.
Hmm.
And I kind of just harken back to what we originally had issues with when it came to the confirmations and the appointments in the first place, which was like Trump should have just not cared about the process and got all of his guys in regardless. Playing this game led back to the same issues we saw in 2016, which is a lot of red tape and a lot of people who are stabbing him in the back who don't have his interest, let alone the American people's interest at heart. And now we're back in a similar situation with where we were in 2016, which is not a lot getting done and a whole lot of talking. And like I just don't like the parallels that I'm seeing. Give him some time, obviously, and I think it's good that we called it off. And I think even against, what maybe people say we're controlled by Israel, right? The fact that he went against the wishes of Israel to bomb the nuclear facility, it at least shows that there is a level of which, like, he's listening to Hegseth and JD over whoever else you may claim that is controlling America. It's just not a good look. This is terrible optics, and largely because of what the consequences would be, and that would be World War III. I mean, there's no way that China doesn't step in when Iran is their foothold in the Middle East, and there's
Hmm.
no way that Russia doesn't step in either when again they have a large economic deal with Iran as it pertains to like oil and such, and the consequences are just awful. And I just again I'm asking, can someone tell me like what does your average American citizen get out of this? Is like what I'm asking, and no one can answer that
Right.
question. And I think
Right.
that's where everything falls flat on its face, which is like let's just not be involved at all.
And I think of my friend, our friend Dan McKnight. When anytime we talk about potentially going to a new war, will Congress actually declare war this time? If
Right.
that's the case, if we're going to it, is this going to be a Congress decision or not? Which is kind of rhetorical. I think the answer is obviously no. But it's something going back a little bit. They definitely want to drive a wedge between Trump and Hegseth, um, simply because that's what the left has done. These Democrats have done to Trump historically, and anybody that's been close to him in his first term. Anybody that was around Trump, they used the Russian collusion excuse to essentially stick a telescope up everybody around Trump's ass and try to figure out anything that they've done in their entire history, whether it had anything to do with Donald Trump or not, just to make these people's lives miserable. For them to say, you know what, it's not worth being this miserable to be associated with you, Mr. Trump. I'm sorry. I just have to bow out, right? For my family's sake, I just can't continue supporting you or whatever, right? And that's how they treated him the first time. This time he had stronger people around him, Elon Musk, Pete Hegseth, and um, we've seen how they've tried to, drive the wedge between Trump and appeal to, his uh, got to be the boss mentality, right? Because that's a projection that the left has put on Donald Trump, that he's this dude that's got to be in control. He's a narcissist, and so when we go out there and say that Elon Musk is the real president, that'll dig at Trump and get a reaction, right? And so they're trying to appeal to the thing that they have uh, labeled him, right? Which
Right.
didn't work, thankfully. Trump has been pretty steadfast with his support from Elon and vice versa. And we're even seeing that with Trump and Pete Hegseth here. And we even have do we still have it in the outline? I might have accidentally deleted it, or you might have moved it around, but we had Donald Trump has came out here and said that he's in full support of Pete Hegseth and what he's doing right now. And Caroline
Yep.
Levitt actually uh,
Yeah, that's what I was going to go to,
said
because Trump
something
said
about
that in response to the fact that the NPR went with that entirely fake story about that they were starting to look for a replacement for Pete Hegseth, and so Trump came out and backed them. And I don't have the exact quote from Trump, but I did see that post from Caroline Levitt as well. I believe she actually quoted the NPR article in what she had said, what she said, but that should have been in the trending aggregate. But I can find it from Caroline. I had the video pulled up of him actually addressing it head on.
Oh, okay. Well, you still have control of StreamYard here, so if you wanted to,
Oh, yeah.
I was just looking. I was thinking, where's that video? I should probably get ready to stage it, but I don't see it anymore. I tried to add it to the outline at the very end, but it like gave it. Did I put it underneath
Oh, yeah, you did.
the
Underneath the
tab?
conclusion on the outline. From Nick Sortor?
Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, I was
Yeah.
expecting it to be over to the left a little bit further on its own little tab, and
Right,
I
okay.
messed that up.
Yeah, we'll play that video. I'll play this one then, and you switch and you take over and you'll play that one.
Okay.
But here's this one directly addressing, and I'll go back out, from Benny Johnson, that he shuts down the fake news media targeting him. But here is the clip.
You know, what a big surprise that a few leakers get fired and suddenly a bunch of hit pieces come out from the same media that peddled the Russia hoax. Won't get back their Pulitzers. They got Pulitzers for a bunch of lies. Pulitzers for a bunch of lies and on hoaxes, time and time and time again. And as they peddle those lies, no one ever calls them on it. See, this is what the media does. They take anonymous sources from disgruntled former employees, and then they try to slash and burn people and ruin their reputations. Not going to work with me, because we're changing the Defense Department, putting the Pentagon back in the hands of warfighters, and anonymous smears from disgruntled former employees on old news doesn't matter. So I'm happy to be here at the Easter egg roll with my dad and my kids, because this is what we're doing it for. These kids right here. This is why we're fighting the fake news media. This is why we're fighting slash and burn Democrats. This is why we're fighting hoaxsters. This group, this group right here, full of hoaxsters that peddle anonymous sources from leakers with access to grind, and then you put it all together as if it's some news story. And when we know it, we know exactly what it is. Mm-hmm. So I'm really proud of what we're doing for the president, fighting hard across the board, and I'm going to go roll some Easter eggs with my kids. Thank you very much.
That was great.
Yeah, that was awesome. And good. We need more of that. We need more of that. The direct confrontation of the media.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
good. And
called them fraudsters and fake. He didn't call them fake news, which was funny. Called them fraudsters and gave them some new names.
Right. Wasn't it funny that the same news media that freaked out and lost their minds because he had Christian nationalist tattoos are the same ones who are, moaning that Abrego Garcia is being deported because of his tattoos. Right? It's like, yeah, no principle, no consistency, just whatever draws clicks, whatever destroys the country from the inside out, whatever self-aggrandizes these sad, soulless, depraved reporters. It's what they do. It's what they get off on. I'm beginning to think that it has to, at this point, it has to be like a sexual kink or fetish to just be like the most depraved people on the planet. Because how could you continually be involved in hoaxes, smears, and just the fakest news reporting the world's ever seen, and have any self-esteem whatsoever?
Right. Well, playing the victim goes a long way with those folks.
Right. I mean, at this point, it's like they have to get off on it. Like they were loving it. They're like, oh, look at Hegseth get mad at the fake news story we made. Like, oh, I feel so good.
Right.
What? Like, why are you doing this? Like, no, I get it. Like, obviously, evil persists, but at the individual level, it's like some people have to know these people, right? Like, who raised these individuals? Like, what? But again, not shocked whatsoever. But it's clear they want him out. Like they want someone else installed because the neocons, whoever you want to say it is, they clearly want war with Iran. They want us to be involved overseas. They want to continue the forever wars, and we can have none of it. So I agree with Matt Walsh. Like we have to throw our support as much as we can behind Hegseth, because man, if that's what's at stake, yeah. I'll start campaigning for Hegseth like on my YouTube videos every other day. Like, because F that, dude. Like, I'm not, and I refuse it. I'll ignore the draft. I won't support the military. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm not going to support another forever war in the Middle East. Refuse it entirely.
Right. So I'm confused here. Actually, I'm gonna derail for a second. I just had a notification on X from Jamie, and I don't know if this is actually. I'm following you, and you follow me back. You're followed by Atlas, but I'm wondering if Jamie had her X account messed with. She's got, it says Biden on her wall. Okay, you did that. Okay. Like, what's going on here, Jamie? Is that you that's messaging? Okay.
So Biden
Okay.
supporter, huh?
No, I see now. My bad. That threw me off, Jamie. Okay.
You voted for Biden. Go to Iran.
She tagged us in a post, and I can't see what she's responding to. So that threw me off.
Oh,
I thought she was asking us, what is the CIA telling us to do? Like, no way Jamie thinks we're a CIA.
Oh, she probably saw the NPR story.
Yeah, that is it. It says at NPR, what the hell are you? Yeah, that's it. I see now. I'm not a I thought I was an expert on X. It took me a second to put that together. I'm like, wait a minute. What's going on here? I thought we were friends, Jamie. No, I got it now. Yeah, you can screenshot that and put it in the Discord.
That's funny. No, I thought it was funny. I got it when I read it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry.
But yeah, you had the. Is that what
Jamie.
Caroline Levitt's talking about? Is Trump backing up Hegseth despite that fake story?
Yeah. And I have that right here. I can put this on the screen. So anyways, moving forward, Caroline Levitt confirms President Trump is standing by Pete Hegseth despite the fake news efforts to oust him. Quote, the president stands strongly behind Secretary Hegseth, who is doing a phenomenal job leading the Pentagon. So we'll just go ahead and hear it from her mouth directly.
The president stands strongly behind Secretary Hegseth, who is doing a phenomenal job leading the Pentagon. And this is what happens when the entire Pentagon is working against you and working against the monumental change that you are trying to implement. Secretary Hegseth was nominated for this position because he is standing up for the war fighter, the men and women in uniform who are putting their lives on the line to protect our country and our homeland. And unfortunately, there have been people at that building who don't like the change the secretary is trying to bring. So they are leaking and they are lying to the mainstream media. We've seen this game played before. The secretary is doing a tremendous job and the president stands strongly behind him. The president stands.
Cool. So that's what we need. We need to, as long as they're actually doing a good job, but we need them to stand together and not be divided.